Fake good one here, and eventually we will like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff. Help promote and rank up my channel. So we're here to review The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 1, next big MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe series since WandaVision. And WandaVision was a show surrounding a lot of mystery and intrigue. It generated a lot of conversation, raised just a lot of eyebrows. There were all kinds of things that were just baffling about it and intriguing about it. It stepped out of the typical MCU formula and did something really intriguing and interesting, but ultimately it went back into the safest direction possible. Typical Marvel cliche, you could say, within Marvel's own tones and what they're comfortable with. That one went right back into that direction when it seemed like it was taking a huge risk and all that. And since then, we've learned all kinds of things that, like Kevin Feige has stated, that these shows aren't gonna, there's not gonna be anything in these shows that you need to know to understand what's going on in the Marvel movies. So there's just a lot of things in here that really have reset expectations down to a low where it's very meh, it's very okay. This one was one that I was greatly looking forward to. So we're going to talk about the first episode, the positives, but ultimately I will say up front that I found, unlike every other person I've seen review this show, I have found it very underwhelming, and it pales in comparison to the mystery and intrigue that WandaVision rose and ultimately squashed with its trolling, misleading, and reverting back to something that's a very safe route for the MCU to play in. With that said, let's move on to the positives. The positives on this one, these supporting characters, sidekicks, getting the spotlight so much so that you get to see what's going on in their personal lives. All really nice touches, taking place about 6 months after Avengers Endgame, the snap, the blip, the return, whatever you want to call it. One of the most intriguing things in this, though, is the Flag Smashers. Rather than a single villain, a group who preferred the world the way it was during the snap, the absence of half the world's population. And I'm interested in seeing where that goes itself. There's some great chemistry in here between Falcon and the new guy. It's an interesting dynamic. The Falcon, Sam Wilson, and the new guy that I can barely remember the name of because I'm not as familiar with his comic book character. He's meant to become the next Falcon, his buddy, and he's a likable character in the show itself, but I'll shed more light on that later in the personal bias section. But the most interesting stuff for me through this episode was actually Bucky, the Winter Soldier, as part of the pardon plea or whatever, these therapy sessions that he has to go through to make sure he doesn't go back to his old brainwashed ways. There was some quality comedy in that. The action scenes, the flashback to him as Winter Soldier on an assassination job was pretty damn solid. And the drama surrounding this character, trying to make amends with and be friends with an old man that he's actually more the age of, and trying to sort out how to tell him he's responsible for his son's death. That for me was one of the more interesting aspects of the entire thing. And we get a nice little cameo and exchange between best friend of Cap and best friend of Iron Man, James Rhodes, War Machine, in a room full of Easter eggs to the history of Cap. Nice little nods in there, and Sam passes the shield on and gives it up, even though Cap kind of passed it on to him and he didn't really know what to do with it. Sam ends up giving it up in here, and that leads to some more interesting things. The reveal of Flag Smashers in here, the reveal of the group, and U.S. agent ultimately revealed in the end as the next Captain America to just blow Sam's mind, like, what, really? all this is interesting. It's really setting the stage for something even more interesting. They're laying the groundwork. It was nice to see Red Wing, the drone, get a little cool moment in here to shine. A nice nod in reference to Uncle Sam, his sister, calling it Sam Wilson that. Good pacing, superior movie level action, and really great drama, setting the stage for really high stakes to come. That's all I can really say about it. I've always enjoyed the character Falcon before he was big, before he was in the movies. Winter Soldier, these are awesome characters, and I'm very curious to see what they can do with this show. But let's move on to the personal bias section. So, personal bias in regards to the continued narrative of Cap passing the shield on to Falcon within the established friendships and continuity of the movies. It never made much sense to me for Cap to pass the mantle on to Sam as opposed to Bucky. I'm not fond of Falcon becoming a hand-me-down Captain America when he shines as Falcon, as his own man, as his own hero, in the shadow of no one. And I'm not fond of this other guy becoming Falcon. I don't want these superhero stand-ins for already existing versions of characters that just gives us more of the same. And I'm still disappointed by movie version of Red Wing being a drone, and I know a superpowered bird is silly. It's not a big deal. It's cool to see him even as a drone, but I didn't find myself drawn into Sam's personal life. The stuff going on with his sister, it wasn't bad or good content. It felt filler and lacked something of real weight for me that just didn't draw me into it. And the new Captain America U.S. agent, I have so many questions about how they're going to do him in this show. He looked cheap. Like a real nerdy version of Cap, a cheap knockoff. His debut just left me with that first impression that it's not good. Also, just to point out, Sam says something about white folks, and I always think it's odd about how bizarre things, certain bizarre, really bizarre things get labeled as racist from white people, but broad statements about white people, generalizations, nobody bats an eye at or thinks twice about. So I'm hoping this show doesn't get too political into a white man bad direction due to Marvel Comics becoming social justice activism in modern comics, where everything is so transparent that mutants aren't even used as a metaphor for social indifferences and such. But we'll have to see where they take this. Overall, right now, I'd give this episode a 6 out of 10. It does have some interesting things, but it feels very meh, very underwhelming. And WandaVision reset my expectations. First, it set my expectations really high, but due to them trolling us and all that, it's just hard to get excited about anything they have to say or anything anymore. I don't want to draw conclusions where there may not be any, make assumptions. Just take it straightforward for what it is as it's delivered, and right now it's not anything really amazing or that blows me away or that catches my eye. It's just something that exists, very middle of the road, not bad, not absolutely fantastic or great that blows me away. It's just WandaVision started out as something really intriguing, really mysterious, and then it went to a direction, the safest direction possible, where they went back to their typical MCU ways. And this is more of just that straightforward MCU stuff that you would expect from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's not anything daring, dangerous, inventive, or that's trying to break the formula, trying to go out and really change the way they do stuff, at least as of right now, this first episode. I also would like to say that I'm not really fond of Falcon just killing a bunch of people. That he did that here, but of course, you know, it's not that big of a deal. They were terrorists. Just when you think of heroes, you don't think of them just slaughtering everybody. but that's just one little minor critique. That's not the biggest problem with the episode. I think the biggest problem with the episode is how cheap U.S. agent looked. But we'll have to wait and see more. Maybe he can really deliver. But as it stands for right now, it's just likable at best. It exists. That's cool that Falcon and Winter Soldier can get the spotlight and have their own thing. But overall, ultimately, Kevin Feige's already said that none of these shows are going to have any real big impact on how the movies play out. So, I don't know, really, if there's anything to get excited about with knowing that you don't have to watch any of these shows to understand what's happening in the movies. It's kind of hard to get excited about any of this. With that said, let me know your own thoughts and opinions. Very good one here. Eventually we will like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff. I will, of course, be reviewing every episode, and hopefully I have more positive reviews in the future. Hopefully the episodes really draw me in, help me do something that wows me, so I can have such a strong positive buzz as everybody else does on this show so far. This is probably... I'm probably the only one who's saying that this is pretty bland and very middle of the road and did nothing for me, that it's cool that it exists, but it is what it is. It exists, and I'm like, that's nice. But that's it. 6 out of 10. Stay awesome. Rock on.